And so does the net result for this improve that you can isolate and find those individuals that don't mind the middle seat and start behaviorally sitting there and have a greater experience overall? But they missed the trick. They missed the Virgin Galactica. Wouldn't they send someone to space? That would have been better as a prize, I think.
They should have done that. You can get the middle seat on a spacecraft.
Oh,
that's what they do.
Welcome to Punchy by Rival, where we take the gloves off to share the hard-hitting realities of the challenger marketing world. Each week, we'll break down the buzz and cut through the BS, the top stories and trends to tell you what you really need to know and do differently to grow your brand and career.
Welcome to Punchy, everybody. Today, the role of Eric Fulweiler will be played by the non-bearded me, Jenna Cummings. I think that really, I just need to admit that I'm quite jealous of your guys' beards. I wish women could grow beards. Anyways, today
you mention it quite a lot.
I do. I just kind of wish it was okay. Anyways, welcome to Punchy, where the points are made up and the rules don't matter. Joining us today, we have Carlos Doughty and DuBose Cole, as usual, where I will also be on the panel and hosting. So get ready for some capricious point awards this week. It's going to be exciting. Carlos, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm also jealous of the beard, though, I've got to say. As soon as puberty kicks in for me, I'm there.
Don't they just look like, it just looks like you have something like so interesting to stroke when you're thoughtful, you know what I mean? Like you just get like, exactly, like DuBose looks serious and like very like wise, like stroking this, whereas I look sort of like exactly to your point. I don't know, maybe once puberty hits for me, I'll get one too. DuBose, how are you doing? Looking so serious.
I'm good, thanks. Just stroking my beard, hanging out. Really appreciating the idea you're going to be the Kenny Dalglish of Punchy in both play and coach. So Kenny Dalglish was a football player, Jenna. Football is a sport played in England. So just
wait, proper football? Or because you also follow American football.
I do. I call American football and give like football the prominence it deserves to be like the default football.
All right,
soccer football.
Yeah. Well, in any case, Carlos, thank you so much for joining us today. So as per usual, we've done a little bit of digging into your background. So we'll give you just we'll give our listeners a brief overview of who you are. So Carlos is the CEO and founder of LXA and also a course instructor there. He trains the world's leading brands, vendors, and agencies in all things martech and marketing ops. So as a media buyer and planner, may I personally say thank you so much for your service. We deeply appreciate it. One of your LinkedIn recommendations calls you talented, creative, and competitive, which is super good because this is a very competitive show, as you may have already guessed a little bit. But to everybody, like I say, welcome. Chris, thank you so much. It's really great to have you here. So this week, like I say, we'll kind of walk you guys through the format. As usual, we talk about some of the most interesting marketing news of the week, what DuBose and I have seen, as well as what Carlos is the most interested in talking about this week. We'll kind of go through, summarize the news, and then we're going to have our guests give about a minute initial hot take, and then we'll duke it out. That's the punchy part of the Punchy show, and then I'll award points. The big change this week is going to be that I'm tired of Eric's little 6 points, 7 points, 10 points. We're talking big point totals this week. 1,000 point here, 100,000 points there.
Big moves.
It's really big moves. Big moves are happening this week in Punchy.
Gloves are off.
Let's kick off. Yeah. Let's kick off. Carlos, you have our first story for today, and I'm actually very excited to talk about this one. So this is from Chief Martech, why there are 10,000 Martech products that kind of all do the same thing, but not really. What an incredible phenomenon that I personally have noticed and commented on. This is one of the sort of perennial criticisms of the Martech landscape, is that most products all do kind of the same thing, or that if you look at it as a Venn diagram, huge areas of service and capability kind of overlap. Pretty much everything will send an email or render a web page or analyze some data, and that this criticism has grown louder in proportion to the growth of the landscape, as we've seen more and more tech players explode onto the scene, which has definitely been a big trend over the past couple of years. This is kind of again the really common criticism. But the author has a couple responses. There are, in fact, some tools that do stuff differently and do it to varying degrees of good or bad. The author here particularly raises DALL-E 2 as an example. And I think, like I said, the AI, text-to-image rendering is a really interesting one. I've seen the salmon in a river example quite recently about it's just a fillet of salmon versus an actual fish. But even if there are many tools that do similar things, all that can mean is that the product gets cheaper for the marketer to use simply by laws of economics. And the author finished the article by stating that incremental innovation is still innovation. I definitely agree with this. It can meaningfully differentiate one vendor from another and deliver really great benefits to their customers, which is why martech has 10,000 products that all kind of do the same thing, but not really. So Chris, really interesting POV. What a great topic. Would love to put a minute on the clock and hear your 2 cents, but probably a little more over the next minute.
Sure thing. So quick shout out to Scott Brinker, the man who created the word martech. He's the author behind this. This is fresh, top of mind. We ran a wicked event last Friday. I would say that, but I'm not wrong. And Scott presented there. Martech. Marketers lose their shit for logos on a page. So I'm sure everybody's familiar with the infographics of all the logos. This is what we're talking about, 10,000 of them. Is it just a bunch of logos, or are there really 10,000? I think Scott's wrong and right. I think it's sort of same, different. The first thing is, yes, there are 10,000, but are there really? The truth is, all of us can probably name the top 5. You know, the major players, the Adobes, the Salesforces, the Microsofts, and then there's the long tail. And I would say, if we were being brutally honest, we could cut that 10,000 down massively and go that there is a bunch of sameness, but there is then a load of stuff which is exactly as Scott described, incredibly different. It looks the same, but at the heart of it, the logic, the AI, the algorithms in the middle are the bits, the workflows that completely transform one system to another. But yeah, I think the other part, just one last part to throw in there, I know I'm up for time, is the biggest problem here, that why we all think there are so many tools that do the same thing, is the martech vendors themselves. They fail to articulate in simple terms what the hell they do. So it all sounds the same. It all sounds marketing buzzwords without any clarity of differentiation of what the core product does.
Sounds like many martech vendors could benefit from improved B2B marketing. What a fantastic point. DuBose, would you like to also add your thoughts to this rich discussion?
I would. No, I agree. I think better B2B marketing is there, but I think also there's a perception of the value of a tool. I think, Chris, you raise a really great point, which is I think advertising is one of those unique industries, and marketing is one of those unique industries where I think people are more in love with the presence of certain tools than and it's Carlos, not Chris. So Carlos had a great point there. But I think generally the thing that strikes me, and I think, Carlos, your point on this is right. When you look at the surface of a lot of these things, they obviously seem very similar. But that's because I think a lot of the time advertisers and marketers aren't giving these tools the credit or the level of scrutiny they deserve on what the actual value is. I think it's interesting that if you were to look at like handymen or builders or people who have like an array of tools as well, it's not the logo, it's not the maker of the tool, it's the thing you can do with it. It's the use case. And I think a lot of the time on both sides of the aisle, both on the client side and on the manufacturer side, I think martech is guilty of being focused too much on innovation, on the data it can get, not what it can do with it, on the features, but not on the benefits, not on the use case. And I think when you get to that, that's where you have a substantive discussion of tools.
Thank you so much, DuBose. I guess I'll add my thoughts in my constrained 1 minute, and then we'll open this up, like I said, to some larger discussion. And then I'll just be unbiased in my awarding of massive amounts of points. Like I said, obviously, Carlos, I definitely agree with you and with DuBose on this one, where it's kind of, again, people can name kind of like the top 5, and then like realistically, the rest of the market is like this big long tail arrangement, which I think is partially due to, frankly, the amount of systematic like difficulties that people have in training and getting upskilled on new tech platforms. Where like I think that the biggest barrier to adoption and legitimate innovation, like in like the martech and kind of like general ad tech space overall, is very rarely, again, like the incremental product innovation or improvements that come with these things, but the difficulty that organizations have in adopting them to their fullest capabilities. And that realistically, I think that the martech folks that have done the best are the places like the Salesforces and the Googles, and frankly, to a lesser extent, the Adobes, where I think like Salesforce and Google have done stellar jobs at training people and creating like a pipeline to get them like onboarded onto their tech and built into that ecosystem. And I kind of wish that was something that more like martech vendors invested in, because then is like when people can use your tool is actually when then we can actually kind of see the value of those types of innovations. And to your point, that the data and the algorithms in between that really make that magic. But I just see a complete, lack, and like the space suffers for lack of training and legitimate adoption of like those types of things. So yeah, so 3 minutes on the clock, open sparring. What do we think?
I mean, it's funny, right? Like the point you raised, Jenna, is so true. It's interesting. I was chatting to a mate who was trying to get something done at their house, and I had no idea, but actually you have to be certified to use certain ladders in the UK. So over a certain height, you have to go to like a ladder and scaffolding training course. It was the most interesting thing. And it's not sponsored by like Big Ladder or anything. This is like something that the government like independently backed. But I think the interesting
ladder,
thing
like
is
really
Big Ladder. Yeah, like the ladder lobby. But like, I think the thing here that's really interesting is, why is it that for tools in almost every other sector, there is okay, we're going to tell you how this is used. We're going to certify you on it. There is an understanding that you have to go get under the hood of this before you can just drop it on your agency creds or drop it on your supplier kind of page and go, this is what we have. And I think it's something that's sorely missed in advertising. Whereas I think, there's more certification to use a ladder than there is Salesforce.
There is, I think the other part though, marketers are to blame. They love shiny objects, right? And it's just like, oh, I want the AI tool, not I want to try and improve customer experience. And so absolutely, as you described it, you want to reverse engineer from what's the business use case, what's the outcome, what am I actually trying to achieve? Forget whether it's purple, green, orange logo in between, it's the outcome. But as marketers, we get excited, there's a new shiny thing to go play with. And I don't blame martech vendors or salespeople. They're doing their job. They're earning their commission. They're good at what they do. They're good at talking in marketing buzzwords without sometimes digging into what are you actually trying to achieve, because sometimes that won't actually get you more sales. But yeah, without sort of looking to push our own courses, that's part of what we try and do, is break it down, make it simple, forget the tech, just look at reverse engineering everything up to the business goals and the business outcomes.
I mean, it's funny, right? It's what's the old saying? An agency with money is like a mule with a spinning wheel. No one knows where they got it. No one knows how to use it. But I think it is that point that I think, marketers need to be pushed to get the training and understanding of what they're bringing in and not just chase innovation. And I think, to be fair, clients in the marketing and business space probably need to push organizations a bit harder to talk about the tools they use and the value they provide. I think it's interesting that, we're probably on both sides of marketing, both in the client and the supplier side, guilty of chasing innovation more than we are chasing usefulness sometimes. Sorry to jump in there, Jenna, with the Simpsons quote, but it's few and far between.
Yeah, you definitely haven't been able to make a Simpsons reference in every episode we've ever had. No, that's definitely true. This will come out of the point. I was gonna ask a question. So I know, like I said, when I've been on like the negotiating end of like martech contracts, is that rarely like will training or onboarding be included, or sometimes there will actually be incremental charges for that, which I think is crazy, right? Like, why should I pay more for you to provide the value like from your tool that like you're expected to see? Have you seen a change or a reversal in that at all, like in any like martech contracts, like in your experience?
Well, I think the majors get it, because ultimately it turns up and you'll either have the lifetime value or you won't, because at year 1 or 2 contract end, if there isn't utilization of the tool, then somebody's going, I've got no ROI, we're off. And I think what you've seen with the HubSpots, with the Salesforces, they're either baking it in or they're certainly doing a very good job in advocating for the use and certification of their tools. So I think on that side, they're creating that sort of tribal nature of, I am a trailblazer and I'm the Salesforce person, or I'm in HubSpot and I've got this digital certification from watching a bunch of videos that I can stick on LinkedIn. And so I think it's back to the majors. I think the long tail, absolutely not, but the top end, yes.
I love that Salesforce campaign. I feel like I've said it a bunch, but yeah, they came up with like their nice little like woodland, like cute, like animated like mascots to go along with like their trail, the trailhead like training program. I thought it was such a good campaign, honestly. Anyways, all right, points. DuBose, I'll give you 10 points for the Simpsons reference, and then 22,000 points for the rest of the substance of your answer. Carlos, you get 27 is my favorite number, so you get 27,000 points for the substance of your answer, and I'm going to award myself 5 points. There we go. I can also, this is the nice part about rigging the game, is like, if I don't want to do the rant or the rave at the end, I can rig it against myself. It's perfect. Yeah. In any case, moving on to our next story, which is mine, actually. So, from the Financial Times, greenwashing faces fresh curbs in UK regulators' crackdowns. Regular listeners of the show know that I love news about government regulation cracking down in hopefully positive ways on advertisers. In any case, the summary for this one. So the UK's financial regulator has moved to clamp down on greenwashing with proposed restrictions on investment managers using terms such as green and ESG. Social governance in fund marketing, and a new set of customer-friendly labels for sustainable investments. These rules include using a set of 3 fund labels to distinguish types of green investing, and imposing a higher burden on firms to back up their marketing with evidence. This actually came right off the heels of last week, the UK advertising watchdog, the Advertising Standards Authority, rebuking HSBC for all of those ads that I think pretty much all of us have seen if you have visited an airport in the last, 10 years, where those adverts were judged to be misleading about the bank's green credentials because they did not mention HSBC's financing of fossil fuel projects and links to deforestation. A quote from the article, like I say, from the FCA, the greenwashing misleads consumers and erodes trust in environment, social, and governance products. Consumers must be confident products claim to be sustainable, that they actually are. Our proposed rules will help consumers and firms build trust in this sector. All right, a minute on the clock. I gotta go first because this one is from me. Oh my gosh, I'm so freaking hyped. Again, like partially, like I say, like on a personal level, about we absolutely like need these things as a society, but also because I think this is huge for consumers that want clarity, like in their products. I realize that this is primarily around like green investments, and so I'll leave aside a little bit the ethical and social value of making banks disclose that with one hand, again, they're fueling fossil fuels, and on the other hand, again, trying to say like responsible green investments, which is just not how this works like at all. But again, also increased pressure on what marketers are going to have to say for like their green products and greenwashing. I just feel that on a personal level, it's very challenging to have to be educated on, again, what is the best or like kind of the most ecological or sustainable products. It's really impossible to keep up with the science of various things. And so I think that putting the burden of this on marketers and investment funds actually to quantify these things when they have significantly more tools to do so is huge. I know a couple episodes ago we talked about like Google, starting to do some carbon offsets in some places, and then there being skepticism of like, is that really legitimate? I think some standards and practices around this behavior are absolutely great. That's my 2 cents. Carlos, let's go to you. Minute on the clock. What's your take?
Yeah, my take is, will it really matter? I think in a market downturn, are we going to see a shift away from messaging around being green? Will it be more about pricing? Will we find that actually what was important in sort of strong markets is less important as we see a downturn, especially in the UK, obviously from a recession perspective? It's more of a question than a statement from my side though. But does it become less about being green and more about being orangey?
What's orangey?
Just less green.
Oh.
Filled with citrus.
Or maybe I've got the wrong color. What would be a greenish?
Like a chartreuse.
Yellow? Chartreuse. Yellow. Yeah.
Or yellowy.
Chartreuse is good. Halloween's coming up. Chartreuse punch makes a great Halloween punch. Anyways, DuBose, minute on the clock. What's your hot take?
So I think it is incredibly necessary to start regulating not just kind of sectors, but overall use of things like net zero terms, ESG, things that are going to erode trust through greenwashing. I think that's incredibly necessary, even if consumers start to move away from it, because I think these things always ebb and flow, right? We're seeing some research that in the downturn, consumers are going to prioritize price over sustainability. That doesn't mean, though, that they don't expect businesses and brands to pick up the slack for them and just not get the payoff for it anytime soon. I think, the thing that I've always firmly believed is that problems like climate change are going to require a lot of different organizations to solve, including some from unlikely places like big banks and petrochemical companies, potentially, especially in markets that are still much more dependent on oil. And so I think something like this and pushing the responsibility back onto those companies to regulate themselves and make sure that they're not eroding trust is an incredibly powerful thing. A, because it's going to fight climate nihilism that we're seeing amongst consumers, and B, because it's going to stave off the idea that utility, petrochemical, potentially finance in the environmental sector at a certain point may lose their platform otherwise. If trust continues to erode, there's a good chance that we could see energy advertising go the way of tobacco advertising. And I think if it can be a useful voice in society, I think these are kind of people that actually, in the same way only Nixon could go to China. I think when you start to see petrochemical companies delivering trustworthy messages and advancement, you're going to see some progress in the space.
All right, 3 minutes on the clock for open discussion. And DuBose, I do want to start with like one of those points that you just said about like, will energy advertising go the way of tobacco advertising in our lifetime? And I honestly think that that's a legitimate possibility. Like, I don't know, I've always been really obsessed with the UK's like ability to place prop bets on just about anything, right? Like you can go find betting houses that will take bets on anything. And I think we're getting to the point where I might be willing to go make a prop bet that yes, fossil fuel advertising will be functionally outlawed within our lifetimes. And I don't necessarily think that marketers are ready for that. Or that marketers are ready again for the responsibility of like actually having to be a little bit more involved and aware of the rest of the business's operations for some of the claims that they make. Like the GDPR was really huge, that it put the onus and the responsibility on agencies and platforms as well as advertisers about the claims that they make. And I can definitely see a world where like, again, advertisers and agencies have, shared liability for some of these types of claims. And I don't know that we're ready for it. What do you think?
I think the interesting thing here is, to that point, advertising is attempting to make the simplest message possible. And when we're talking about things like net zero, that's a complex topic. So I think to your point, restrictions and market forces that keep advertising from operating independent from the rest of the reality of a business, or at least until consumer knowledge catches up, that we can understand the kind of depth of these claims, is going to be a really important thing. I think, yes, in the long term, you're going to see fossil fuel advertising banned, probably in a 20, 30-year time frame for a lot of markets, just because, the less developed an economy will go, the more it's going to still require the base levels of kind of petroleum and energy that we would consider dirty in other markets or other developed kind of economies. And I think, the challenge is going to be, just like you saw with tobacco advertising, work its way down that curve. I imagine energy and petroleum advertising will do the same. But I think the intriguing thing here is there is a different path, or at least a path that delays that, which is the idea that if restriction can cut out the advantage of making fast and loose claims, I think you can have a more substantive discourse where actually there is a value for a lot of sectors that you wouldn't normally trust for making progress on climate, to show that they do have a level of commitment and a level of progress they're providing. And I think when both sides can kind of hold each other to account, but also understand what each other are doing, and by that I mean companies in sectors that may be considered dirty and people that are concerned about climate as kind of diametrically opposed, I think a discussion between those and an understanding of what each are doing and what each's reality is going to be quite useful for progress within climate.
I really like the thinking of this in the framing around tobacco, because clearly that was transformative. And I think sometimes when you're in a certain moment in time, it's difficult to imagine that scenario where there really could be that fundamental change. And I think you could be right. Yeah, I think if you have legislation in place that forces this to go right to the core and at the product level, not at the loose and free marketing level, I think that makes a real change. I think, Jenna, your point around GDPR was a good one as well. I think when you look at GDPR, we've seen a complete change in how marketing operates in the UK and Europe because of that. And so I think they're nice examples to remind us of just how much change can come from positive legislation.
Mm-hmm.
Governments doing good things for their citizens. Yeah. Anyways, I really like the DuBose's point about like we need this to fight climate nihilism. I've started seeing really good influencers on Instagram do really funny things. There was somebody who did like an Irish drinking song about anti-nihilism, and he was Irish. It was really good. I really enjoyed it. So I've enjoyed a push against that. Point. I will give myself 25,000 points for this one because, this was a social good story and I feel good about bringing it up. So 25,000 points to me. DuBose, I'll give you 20,000 points for your point about substantive discourse. I thought that was always a good phrase when you can work that in. So that brings you to what, 44,010?
Yeah, I'll take that.
Is that right?
I'll take that.
Yeah, okay, all right. Yeah. Carlos, we'll give you another 25,000 points, again, for tying it in and agreeing with my point on the GDPR. Thank you so much, which brings you to 52,000 points. Is that right? 27 plus 25? Yeah, 52. There we go. Great. All right.
I'm just trying to keep up with that. I just need to know, how many points has Chris got, though? Do you know?
Chris has 100,000.
He's killing it. He's killing it. He's out there.
Chris is killing it. Because Jenna's embarrassed that she made it. Yeah. Anyways, yes. So going into the third and final round, it's neck and neck. That's not really neck and neck. Chris is leading wildly. But there is a chance, Carlos, for you to make up the ground on Chris, or alternately claim his points if you're interested in that. DuBose, we come to our third and final story, and this one's yours, and this one's actually really fun. I really like this one. Airline launches lottery to entice more passengers to sit in the middle seat. Oh, from CNN. Getting the middle seat on a plane is like getting a slap on the face. I should also point out right now that Eric is not on this show because his plane was delayed and he did have to fly in a middle seat on the way out because he was unwilling to pay for a better assigned seat. So yeah, I get it. So only 0.6% or more than 7,500 voters polled were seen to prefer the middle seat in a recent Virgin Australian social media poll. I want to know what's wrong with those people. No one wants the middle seat. Virgin Australia then aims to turn this around by launching the middle seat lottery, a special raffle with about Australian 230,000 or in US dollars 145,000, only open to those who sit in the middle seat voluntarily or involuntarily. From now until April 23rd next year, any Velocity frequent flyer member aged 18 and above who is seated in a middle seat can use the airline's app to enroll in the lottery. And each week, a different prize will be awarded to the winner of the lucky draw. Among the gifts for drafts are a full-day helicopter pub crawl with return flights to Darwin and a 2-night holiday in Cairn, including flights, accommodation, and a bungee jump. Would this entice you to pick the middle seat for your next flight? DuBose, this one's yours. Take it away.
There are so many things to like about this story. I'll get the obvious ones out of the way. Helicopter pub crawl, bungee jump, and Darwin have probably been used before, but more in the sense of natural selection. So I think the prizes are a bit terrifying. But when we talk about the general idea here of trying to kind of make the bad bits of a product exciting, I think this is a really interesting and fun idea. Obviously, it's got a business bottom line because it's pushing people to the app. That's always a fun thing to do if you're a business and have an app. But I think the really, really important thing here is I think as marketers, a lot of the time, we tend to accept that there may be less than perfect aspects of our product. We'll get around to fixing that later, or it's a necessary evil. And I think the exciting thing here is you can have fun with it sometimes. I think this idea that short of, frequent flyer fans of frottage, there's not a lot of people who are really going to want to be stuck in the middle there. But having some kind of interesting nudge, having some kind of fun tone, and something that feels on brand for Virgin as well, is a really exciting way to kind of shore up some of those weaknesses. And I think, if marketers listening to this should probably go, what can I do for the bits that I can't functionally fix right now for my products? How can I make them a little bit more fun? It's kind of like, it reminds me of software developers when they used to do bug hunts in games, where you kind of go, yeah, it's a bit shit if you bought something and it doesn't work perfectly, but let us know and we'll give you a reward. I don't see why that can't be applied to every sector in certain ways.
Okay, but you did not answer the question. Would you take the middle seat to be in this lottery?
I don't like the middle seat because it's the worst of everything. And that, I feel like if you can't get out either side, I wouldn't go to the loo. And so being on a plane for 10 hours in the middle seat is my idea of hell. Helicopter pub crawl is interesting, but you know what? I'm going to be I'll save up and just get my own. I'll get my own helicopter pub crawl. That's what I'll do.
All right, fair enough. Carlos, a minute on the clock for you with your POV, and you do have to answer the question, would you take the middle seat in exchange for a ticket to this lottery?
Cool. Well, I'll answer the most important question first. Yes, as long as you get the elbows out. I feel like the elbows are more important than anything else. Wherever you sit, if you're strategic, you get elbows in first, and then you just lock, and then you're good. But most importantly, yeah, I agree. I think it's an interesting campaign, and I do like the bringing the worst of your product to the forefront. I think the other thing you've got with this, if you dig a little bit deeper, is potentially, does it drive up their NPS score? Are there these crazy, weird people out there that don't mind middle seat, that suddenly start sitting in the middle seat? And so behaviorally, do they create this environment where those that sit middle seat can select it? And therefore, those that really hate it don't sit there. And let's say, for example, someone's a little bit overweight and finds it more difficult, they're not put in that scenario. And so does the net result for this improve that you can isolate and find those individuals that don't mind the middle seat and start behaviorally sitting there and have a greater experience overall? But they missed the trick. They missed the Virgin Galactica. Wouldn't they send someone to space? That would have been better as a prize, I think.
You should have done that. You can get the middle seat on a spacecraft.
Oh,
that's what they do.
You should give them that for free. That right there.
Aren't they all aisle seats on the? I don't know.
I feel like if you pay $300,000 to go to space and all you see is the seat back and people on either side of you, you didn't really go to space.
You'd be fuming, yeah.
Yeah, fair. All right, my minute. No, I would not take the middle seat. There's no prize. There is no giveaway. I need the window seat. I don't want to get up, but I want to be away. I like to be like jammed in the corner, much like this, actually. But Chris, your point. Oh God, Carlos. Oh my God. Oh my God. That's 100% on me, Carlos. You screwed me up last time talking about Chris. Carlos, your point is correct though. Middle seat gets the elbows. That's the unstated rule, is that middle seat 100% has first dibs on both armrests, and that should not be challenged. People who don't give the middle seat people both armrests are terrible. But like I said, I think that your point is actually really good about this, about kind of like the net NPS thing. I do think that I'm a sucker for airlines that at least make some lip service or some veneer of attempt to make the experience of flying a little bit better or a little bit more tolerable in some ways. I kind of respect the Ryanairs and the Spirits of the world for just being you're fucking cattle and you're just gonna fly with us, and that's just the end of it. But I do not like that experience. I will not fly with those airlines. I want there to be at least a little bit of a we care a little bit about your experience when we go for this. So I think this is a great campaign from Virgin. All right, so we've come to the end. So I'm going to award myself negative 25,000 points for making the same mistake after I'm looking at the chat where it says it's Carlos, not Chris. Chris gets awarded another 100,000 points, and Carlos, you also now get Chris's points, so you have a grand total of I think 275,000 points. So congratulations, you're a winner. DuBose, I don't know, 5 points for you.
I'll take
10.
I'll take
10.
the 5 points.
You submitted the story. It was a good story. Yeah. So, Carlos, congratulations. You're now in the Punchy Hall of Fame for the most points awarded to a single guest. So, I hope that makes up for the fact that we couldn't get your name right. I couldn't get your name right.
No.
So
this is going on the LinkedIn profile right here, right now. This is a moment in the career. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, top points for Punchy. So with your last 2 minutes, you get to rant or rave about a topic of your choice. Anything that's either super cool that you're really, really hyped to talk to us about, or something that absolutely grinds your gears that you'd love to talk to us about.
Do you know what? I didn't have anything, but you set me off. You said the words Ryanair. Fuck, I hate those guys. I hate them.
Yes.
I really, really, really hate them. I get they lean into the whole we are cheap, we're cheerful, we don't care, but it's cheap. I think nobody wants that. I've never met anybody that goes, do you know what? It was worth it. The 3 a.m. flight, the horrible scenario, the dirty plane, the delay, the fact that it seems at times you've gone hard to find people that hate other people and put them in charge of customer service. I just think it's no. I think that era has passed, and I think even in tough markets, people just want anything other than Ryanair. Unfortunately, they have got a lot of flights to a lot of places, but I will do anything to avoid them. It's just such a horrible experience to go anywhere near their service. And like, for whatever money you save, it just feels horrible. Every time I get stuck that I can't go anywhere other than Ryanair, I hate it a little bit more. But that was, as you can see, Ryanair, not for me, thank you.
Hate them. I'll pay the extra 30 or 40 pounds to fly in British Airways every single time. Every single time I will pay more for British Airways. DuBose even will fly with Wizz Air or whoever, some out of business defunct airline that went bankrupt.
I will not hear anything bad about Hungary's flag carrier Wizz Air, which got me to some great places. And then one time did cancel on me and I took a 12-hour bus ride. But like, you know, it just showed the other times how fast it was.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wizz Air.
Yeah. All right. Well, this has been another episode of Punchy. Clearly, I'm unfit for hosting duties, so hopefully join us again next week when Eric will be back and we'll manage to treat our guests respectfully by getting their names correct. Carlos, thank you so much. Really appreciate
it's been a pleasure.
being
thank
here.
You.
Yeah, DuBose. See you in like 10 minutes, I guess. Yeah.
I imagine. See you then.
All right.
Punchy is a production of Rival. We are a growth consultancy that builds challenger brands, strategies, and capabilities to disrupt categories. If you want to learn more about us, check out wearerival.com. If you want to connect with Jenna, DuBose, or myself, email us at media@wearerival.com or find us on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, share with anyone you think might enjoy it, and leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.